Welcome back to my channel Celebuzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. Chuck Norris. The name alone evokes images of quiet intensity, unbreakable grit, and a legacy of cinematic fists that could stop time. But behind the roundhouse kicks, the internet legends, and the no-nonsense action star, there's a man with his own heroes. A man shaped by hardship, discipline, and personal evolution, who now steps forward to name the 10 actors he considers the toughest in Hollywood history. But before he speaks, we listen. Because Chuck Norris doesn't just admire toughness, he lived it. Chuck was born Carlos Ray Norris on March 10, 1940, in the dust-choked town of Ryan, Oklahoma. His early years weren't lined with red carpets or martial arts belts. They were etched with poverty, insecurity, and the sting of abandonment. His father, Ray D. Norris, was a mechanic who struggled with alcoholism. His mother, Wilma, juggled jobs to feed Chuck and his younger brothers, Wieland and Aaron. When the family fractured through divorce, Chuck followed his mother to California, a move that marked the first of many battles he'd face in silence. As a boy, he was shy, overlooked. He often kept to himself and struggled in school. "I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't even the most confident," he once admitted. But life in its harshest form was already chiseling the resolve of a future icon. Everything changed in 1958. At just 18, Chuck joined the U.S. Air Force as an air policeman. Stationed in South Korea, far from the dry winds of Oklahoma or the traffic-choked streets of California, he discovered something that would anchor the rest of his life: Tang Soo Do, a Korean martial art. What began as an attempt to build confidence soon consumed him. Martial arts became his compass, his identity. By the time Chuck returned to the States, he wasn't just hungry for success. He was determined to rewrite the story of the insecure boy who once kept his eyes on the floor. He trained relentlessly, earned black belts in multiple disciplines: Tang Soo Do, Taekwondo, Karate, and built a reputation as one of the most formidable fighters in the world. Then, in 1968, the martial arts world stopped and stared. Chuck Norris defeated Joe Louis, the reigning world champion. It was more than a win. It was the coronation of a man who would redefine martial arts in America, and yet Hollywood still hadn't called. That would change with a single fight. In Rome, in 1972, Bruce Lee, the mythic master himself, cast Chuck in Way of the Dragon. Their epic showdown in the Roman Colosseum wasn't just film, it was art. Two titans colliding. One, a graceful philosopher warrior. The other, a thunderstorm in human form. That fight scene launched Chuck into the global spotlight and forever tied him to the legend of Bruce Lee. But Chuck didn't stop there. The 70s and 80s were his proving grounds. Good Guys Wear Black, The Octagon, Lone Wolf McQuade. Films that bled action and character. Then came the Missing in Action series, Delta Force: Code of Silence. Chuck Norris wasn't just a star, he was a symbol. A man who stood for justice, loyalty, and strength when others folded. Then came Walker, Texas Ranger. 8 seasons of high kicks and higher moral ground. Chuck became more than an actor. He became a household name, a figure woven into American pop culture. And yet, despite the glory, Chuck's personal life had its own storms. He married young, 18 years old. Diane Holacek was his high school sweetheart. They had 2 sons, Mike and Eric. But fame can be both a reward and a curse. In 1988, after 30 years of marriage, Chuck and Diane divorced. The following year, his life took another unexpected turn. He met a daughter he never knew existed, the result of an affair years earlier. Her name was Dinah. She had sent Chuck a letter revealing the truth. When they finally met, Chuck broke down. It was the beginning of healing, forgiveness, and family reclaimed. Later, in 1998, he married Gina O'Kelly. Together they had twins, Dakota and Dana Lee. Chuck, now older, approached fatherhood like a man with wisdom etched into every scar. His family became his sanctuary, his faith, his anchor. Through all of this, the battles, the box office wins, the personal revelations, Chuck Norris has remained one thing above all: resilient. And now, with the clarity only time and battle-hardened experience can bring, Chuck names the 10 men he believes define toughness in Hollywood, not in bravado, but in spirit. 10. Is Steve McQueen? Steve McQueen was the embodiment of rebellious cool, a man who made toughness look effortless, even when life tried to break him. Born in 1930 in Indiana, McQueen's childhood was far from easy. He grew up in foster homes and juvenile detention centers, fighting to find a place where he belonged. But it was that rough upbringing that forged his signature grit. He had a fearless approach to life, whether it was racing motorcycles at breakneck speeds or diving headfirst into risky stunts for his films. Off-screen, Steve's rugged charm and defiance of Hollywood conventions made him a legend. On-screen, movies like Bullet and The Great Escape immortalized him as the anti-hero who didn't back down from danger. Chuck admires McQueen not only for his physical daring, but for his unyielding spirit. A man who lived hard, loved fiercely, and never lost his edge. Is Clint Eastwood? Clint Eastwood is a titan of cinema whose toughness is carved from sheer willpower and an unwavering sense of self. Born in 1930 in San Francisco, Eastwood's path wasn't paved with privilege. He served in the Army and struggled as a young actor before landing his breakthrough role as the man with no name in Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns. Eastwood's characters were often men of few words but immense presence, silent, gunslingers, uncompromising lawmen, and complex anti-heroes who carried a storm behind their eyes. Beyond acting, Clint became a revered director and producer, creating timeless films like Unforgiven and Gran Torino. His toughness lies not just in his rugged characters, but in his career longevity, creative control, and ability to stay true to his vision, despite Hollywood's changing tides. Chuck respects Eastwood's blend of grit and artistry, and his fearless refusal to bow to trends. 8. Is Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson was the personification of raw, working-class toughness. Born Charles Bukinski in 1921 to Lithuanian immigrant parents, he spent his early years in a coal mining town where hard labor was a way of life. Bronson's large frame and steely gaze made him perfect for the tough guy roles he became famous for, but his path to stardom was long and hard. He fought in World War II, worked as a lumberjack and construction worker, and only later found his way into acting. Films like Death Wish and The Magnificent Seven showcased his ability to play characters who carried the weight of pain, vengeance, and solitude with haunting authenticity. Chuck admires Bronson's unpolished masculinity and his relentless dedication to portraying the gritty side of life, a toughness that's born from real struggle rather than Hollywood gloss. 7. Is Lee Marvin. Lee Marvin's toughness was forged in the fires of war and carried into every role he played. Born in 1924, Marvin served as a Marine during World War II, where he was seriously wounded in combat. His battle scars were real, and they lent an undeniable authenticity to the hardened characters he portrayed on screen. Known for his gravelly voice and commanding presence, Marvin often played soldiers, outlaws, and anti-heroes with a magnetic, no-nonsense authority. In The Dirty Dozen, his performance as Major Reisman captured the fierce discipline and moral ambiguity of war. Chuck, as a veteran himself, holds Marvin in high regard because his toughness wasn't an act. It was lived experience, visible in every glance and gesture. Is John Wayne. John Wayne, the Duke, was a symbol of American toughness long before Chuck Norris ever stepped onto a set. Born Marion Morrison in 1907, Wayne's imposing figure and slow, deliberate speech made him an icon of Western and war films. His characters embodied values that Chuck reveres deeply: courage, loyalty, and unwavering moral clarity. Though not a martial artist or stuntman, Wayne's toughness came from his principles and leadership, often portraying men who stood tall in the face of adversity and change. Off-screen, he was a staunch patriot and a man who lived by his word, a combination that shaped his legendary status. Chuck admires Wayne's timeless example of toughness grounded in heart and honor. 5. Is Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was more than an actor or martial artist. He was a revolution. Born in San Francisco in 1940 but raised in Hong Kong, Lee fused philosophy, spirituality, and unmatched physical skill to create a new way of fighting and thinking. His charisma electrified screens and redefined what martial arts could be in film. The fight between Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee in Way of the Dragon wasn't just choreography. It was a clash of titans, two forces pushing each other to new heights. Bruce's toughness was rooted in discipline and self-mastery, and his tragic early death only amplified his legendary status. For Chuck, Bruce was a mentor, rival, and friend, a man whose mind and body were weapons of unprecedented power. Is Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone's story is one of sheer grit and determination. Born in 1946 in New York City, Stallone faced many obstacles on his path to stardom, including a partial facial paralysis caused during birth. Rejected repeatedly by Hollywood, he wrote Rocky on a typewriter, insisting on starring in it himself, even when studios said no. That underdog story became a cultural phenomenon, with Rocky Balboa embodying heart, resilience, and the fight to rise above. Stallone didn't stop there. Rambo added layers of complexity and raw toughness, showing a man scarred by war, but unbroken. Chuck admires Stallone for his relentless work ethic, willingness to endure pain, and his ability to create characters who inspire millions to keep fighting. Is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger's journey is the ultimate rags-to-riches tale. Born in a small Austrian village in 1947, Arnold was a scrawny kid with big dreams. His obsession with bodybuilding took him from local gyms to the Mr. Olympia throne, dominating the sport with unmatched discipline. Transitioning to Hollywood wasn't easy. Accent and physique made him a target of skepticism, but his charisma and hard work earned him iconic roles in The Terminator, Predator, and Conan the Barbarian. Beyond acting, Arnold's tenure as governor of California showed his toughness extended to politics and leadership. Chuck respects Arnold's strategic mind, iron will, and relentless pursuit of excellence that transformed him into a global powerhouse. 2. Is Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman's toughness is subtle but undeniable. Born in 1930 in California, Hackman's path to acting wasn't glamorous. He worked various blue-collar jobs before finding his calling. Known for his intense performances in films like The French Connection and Unforgiven, Hackman brought depth, complexity, and a commanding presence to his roles. His toughness wasn't about physical brawn, but mental strength, the ability to convey power through calm, measured authority. Chuck admires Hackman's ability to embody layered, morally complex characters that challenge audiences and defy easy labels, proving toughness is as much about intellect and integrity as it is about muscle. 1. Is Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington represents the evolution of toughness, where moral conviction meets physical presence. Born in 1954 in Mount Vernon, New York, Washington rose through theater before breaking into Hollywood with performances marked by charisma, intensity, and depth. In Training Day, he portrayed a corrupt cop with magnetic menace. In Man on Fire and The Equalizer, he played flawed protectors fueled by a fierce sense of justice. Beyond his on-screen roles, Denzel's commitment to faith, philanthropy, and family grounds his persona in real strength. Chuck sees in Denzel the embodiment of toughness that transcends fists, a force of righteousness, resilience, and heart. Chuck's list isn't just a who's who of action legends. It's a personal reflection, a tribute, a message. That real toughness isn't measured in explosions, punches, or catchphrases, but in how we carry ourselves through life, how we endure, how we protect, how we rise again. And maybe that's why Chuck's name belongs right alongside the 10 he honors, because in every roundhouse kick, every whispered legend, and every quiet act of strength, Chuck Norris is a man who became myth, but he never stopped being human.